Welcome to this new episode of Techzine Perspective. This week we're talking with Sander because Sander went to RSA conference in San Francisco, where it's all about cybersecurity, right, Sander?
Yeah, I have to immediately correct you because they were very clear. The organization was very clear this year that it's not RSA conference anymore. It's RSAC conference. And if you want to give it the full name, it's RSAC 2025 conference. So,
but isn't the C for conference?
Yes, and last year they gave us the instruction to not call it RSA anymore, but call it RSA conference. But so they used to be part of RSA, right? So of that company. But ever since 2022, they completely separated, and apparently calling it RSA conference was still not good enough, or maybe it was a legal issue. I don't know. So now you have to call it RSAC conference. So maybe
nice.
we've scared away all the viewers already now, so that's nice. Very interesting conversation on it.
Okay, so you went to RSA conference. That's a very nice name. And you talk about cybersecurity, I guess, because that's the only topic they really talk about during RSA, right?
That's the point. A lot of people are there, by the way. 45,000 people, I think. Was the
1,000? Jesus Christ, that's a lot. But on one day or spread over the whole week, because that's usually.
Yeah, I don't know. That's always. I mean, I just
you didn't count them.
No, but it was very busy, and the expo hall. So you've been to the Moscone as well, right? For several times.
Yeah, Dreamforce every year.
Both the north and the south Moscone. Yeah, so both the north and the south expo halls of Moscone are full, and also Moscone West is completely full with lots of stuff with Broadcast Alley and all those. So all the media partners are there. So it's not as big as Dreamforce, but I think it is. They use basically everything that they have over there for the conference. So it's a big conference.
So also the theaters and the hotels in the surrounding areas are filled with RSA people.
Okay. Yes.
Hey, but were there main topics during this year's conference? Because usually in these kinds of events, there were certain trends.
You wouldn't predict it probably, but it was a lot about AI for some reason.
AI? Who talks about AI at a security conference?
Well, I went to the conference last year as well, and last year was a lot about using AI in security tooling to actually increase the speed of detection and also give recommendations for remediation and all that stuff. This year there was still quite a bit of that, but also a lot about the latest developments in AI. So we've moved past the old Gen AI that we used to talk about, and now it's usually most of it is about agentic AI. So AI agents and doing stuff autonomously, and that actually is a very interesting dynamic, because on the one hand it is clear that it's increasingly necessary to start using software, so agents or so virtual employees to actually help the tier 2, tier 3 analysts, especially in SOC teams, to help them do their job. But on the other hand, there's always this friction when it comes to autonomy, because autonomy in call centers is completely different from autonomy in protecting your IT estate or your company when you're talking about cybersecurity, right? So there's a lot of hesitation to actually go for autonomy, and that's what struck me most. Not most. What struck me at least is that everybody was very quick to add, whenever they talked about AI agents in security, everybody was very quick to add, oh, but there should be a human in the loop. And I don't think I've heard the human in the loop addition to this as often as I did this year. It just everybody mentioned it.
If I compare it with the vendors I usually visit, the ServiceNows, the SAPs, the Salesforce, etc., they were all talking human in the loop a year ago. They all stopped talking about human in the loop because it can be automated. So that's business processes, that's not security processes. That's the difference.
Yeah, so the sensitivity of security is obviously a lot higher, and if something goes wrong, and also autonomy in security, it depends on largely depends on the industry, right? So giving an autonomous AI agent the power to shut down your entire car manufacturer plant or whatever, that's quite a big thing, right? I mean, that's not something that
Yeah.
you do sort of lackadaisically, so to speak. So I
No.
get why they're very hesitant about it, but
But
coming back to the initial,
let's
yeah.
coming back to the main topic, like, because are we talking about the security process automation that I want to talk about? Do they talk about data protection, about protecting AI agent software, like a sort of SecOps, or are there different
All
fields
all
of
of the
expertise where they
all
want to talk? Or
all of the above, basically.
okay,
There was an interesting announcement by Cisco who deepened their partnership with ServiceNow. Yeah, you will be
okay,
at ServiceNow next week, so if you want to know more about that, you can actually ask them more about that if you want. No, but
mm,
the point was there that so Cisco launched AI Defense in January, which is a platform or a tool platform or whatever you want to call it, to protect the use of AI, to secure AI inside your organization. So all the organizations that use AI that they can do it securely. And ServiceNow has a module called SecOps. So the point of the integration was to combine AI defense with ServiceNow SecOps. So that actually made it easier for security teams and for other people in a company to act on threats and on alerts, and so to bring those teams closer together. And that's actually quite an interesting dynamic that you see there, because that means that two completely different companies, to a certain extent, need to bring their product teams who develop the products that they launch closer together, because they need to take into account what it means for the other. That sounds that may sound a little bit trivial, but it isn't, I think, because
mm-hmm.
it's a very fundamental thing to do, and you need to have lots of communication between the two companies as well. So I think that was an interesting one. And there was a lot of talk about MCP and agent to agent and what that means for
That's the
security.
new
Because
hype, huh?
yeah, I had a conversation with the CISO. I talked to lots of CISOs from lots of security companies, especially with the CISO of F5, and he put it quite nicely. I think he said MCP is the opposite of zero trust, right? Because MCP is
MCP is the
actually
opposite of zero trust. Interesting.
MCP is basically it opens up. It's a protocol that you can use to have agents talk to each other and exchange information without a human in between, right? So, and that's not
And
that.
MCP is basically getting context data, and
Yeah,
the
but I
agent
mean,
to agent
yeah,
is agents talking to each other.
yeah, but that's, I mean, those two are linked, right? So it's very hard to
Yeah.
have one without the other. But the protocol itself isn't necessarily secure. So it's designed to be approachable, be used in that context. So when we talk about zero trust in other contexts, this could be seen as the opposite of it. I found that an interesting analogy. And I mean, there's so much. I can go on for an hour, but let's not bore the people too much. But there is so much more. There are so much more topics that you can think of. But I think the overarching theme for me was this. So how to secure the use of AI with all the recent developments in organizations. And that's quite a big challenge, but for some reason,
And on a broad spectrum, or only on the infrastructure security part, or also just the customer service agents as well?
yeah, I mean, basically, it is about protecting AI in general, right? Because
Okay.
all the AIs
So
can be, all the AI, all the AI that you use and all the agents that you use can in theory be infected and can be attacked.
yeah.
So, and that's a
And do they
way.
talk
If
about
you and
SecOps
especially
then?
if you
When I
sorry, what?
mean, do they want to talk about SecOps, or also talk about SaaS solutions offering agents to secure them in
Yeah,
a kind of way?
yeah. Also that, I mean, because they also interact with the rest of your estate, right? So everybody is talking
Mm-hmm.
to everything, and that makes it quite hard to quite a hard problem to solve, because you only have to get in one place, and then because of everything being connected and everything talking to each other, especially when it happens autonomously inside organization and inside SaaS solutions or between SaaS solutions, or all that the lateral movement, the potential lateral movement of this is quite big.
But is it like a next-gen version of API security then? Or how should I look at it?
Well, APIs are a very important part of this, right? Because there
Yes,
is no
that's
AI
why.
without APIs. Yeah. It's not necessarily next gen version. I think it uses you have to have API security to actually properly secure everything, but that's not everything, right? So yeah, there's other stuff to secure as well. But I mean, there's definitely a link, and not only because they share two letters in the acronym AI and API, but there's definitely a link between the two. Yeah.
Yeah, but because we don't hear much about API security anymore. The one was bad, and the other one still exists, but the rest
Yeah,
is.
but I mean that's not because it's not important anymore. I think that's mainly because API security as a standalone business is hard. Because imagine walking into the office of a CISO and telling them, well, besides all the other stuff that you have to pay for, you also need a separate API security component. The first reaction probably is, shouldn't that be part of something bigger? And that's what the market is showing us as well now, right? Because No Name was bought by Akamai, and I've heard from both from the customer and the vendor side that this reaction of I don't necessarily want to pay for API security separately from my other security investments. That's a very common thing. But if anything, it's even more important now than it was a couple of years ago when those companies came up. But that's just the way the security industry works, right? So and whenever, and I think that's a fundamental thing to stress as well. Security is always a second mover, right? Because they always react to something. So there's new technology coming up, and as soon as new technology comes up, you can bet I don't know how many euros or dollars on it that somewhere in Israel or in Silicon Valley there's a company. We have an interesting
we need to monitor
idea
and secure that.
So that's why there are so many. There are 3,500 security vendors in the world or something like that. That's the main reason why, because you can think of a security solution for basically everything, and then after a while either disappear, or when one or two go public, you can speak of a proper market for a specific angle into security, or they get bought by bigger players and integrated into a bigger stack. That's the normal way of doing things.
Yeah, only I think this time it's kind of complicated because AI is being built into the core of many applications. So securing that as a process on its own is really hard. So you really need to have the whole overarching view to do anything with it. I'm going to ServiceNow next week. They announced their AI control tower thing to monitor all the AI agents and monitor security actions and connect that with their ITSM. They're probably going to show a next version of that. So I think they are in a good position from an IT infrastructure perspective to do some security and automation and monitoring on that. But I don't know if other players get so much access to those platforms to do the same.
Well, I mean, that needs to happen, right? And that's what I meant with the example of the Cisco ServiceNow integration. That's exactly what's happening there. So this was only the integration of AI defense and ServiceNow SecOps is only one part of the thing. Basically, what they want to do, and I think you know his name better than I do, but the ServiceNow CPO, Zahari, I think his name is, last name. He explicitly said that actually the goal is to integrate or to combine that the control tower, so the entire AI control tower approach to what Cisco does. So, and I think that's what you mean, and that's what needs to happen. But but like I said, that's very interesting, but it's also not very easy because of the deep integration you have to make.
But to compare that with the SAPs and the Salesforce of this world, they don't have similar products. They do some layer of security on their own, but there's no open standard or thing they can hook into to monitor those agents that are running over there.
No, but then that's why some companies see this as an opportunity to build a substrate that you can actually put on top of of everything that you have and do it like this, do it like that, and that's how it always works, right? So there's always a new layer that will solve everything, and that's one of the things that's quite annoying about this industry in general, but it is how
But
it
do
goes.
they talk about like a bigger attack factor due to AI, or isn't that the case?
You mean attack surface? You mean?
Oh, attack
Or
surface, sorry, yeah.
well, it does increase your attack surface, yeah. And that goes without saying, especially if you use all sorts of autonomous stuff that we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm. And data
And you don't
security
know.
is also back, I guess, because
Yeah.
you're working with
Because
data.
because data is what it's all about, right? It's not now, especially in the age of AI. It's not about the AI; it's about the data underneath it, right? So you don't necessarily have to build better AI. You have to you have to make sure that you use the best data. And I think that's much more important to a certain extent. That's much more important. And what I also see, by the way, is there's a trend towards developing specific security AI models at the moment. So I think Trend Micro did it together with NVIDIA, I think, or they're making it. You can get it from NVIDIA at least. They have this Trend Cybertron integration in their Vision One platform, but they also part of it they open sourced and they made
Mm-hmm.
available on GitHub and Hugging Face and on NVIDIA, I think.
And what
And
is the
that's
goal? Remediation of
that's
security
that's
incidents, or?
that's a specific based on I think Llama 3
Mm-hmm.
model, so 8 billion parameters, but specifically trained for AI for security purposes. And Cisco also made a similar announcement this week. And then they've distilled. At least Cisco was more explicit about this than Trent was, but they distilled 5 billion tokens from 200 billion tokens. And also those 200 billion tokens was all security data, and they
Okay.
distilled the best data from that into 5 billion, and they claim you can run it on one A100 GPU, so it's also quite accessible to for a lot of companies if they want to use it on-prem or whatever.
But it's a really broad LLM then for remediation, for detecting anomalies. How should I see that?
It is a small LLM in the sense that it's not a generic LLM like the others, because they don't really fit for purpose when it comes to security. But other than that, they should help, or this model should help with all the different components of security life.
So all those all those smaller security companies are gonna adapt this LLM probably in the upcoming months, and all coming with new AI features based on that, or
Well,
is that a trend we're gonna see?
the fact that they open sourced it. I'm expecting many more of these things to come. Many more,
Yeah,
at least many
but
more
NVIDIA
companies.
usually comes with a good model.
Yeah. But but I expect many more companies to integrate it into or maybe enhance it, or maybe make it more specific to their use case, or because it's open source, and so you can do with it what you want, basically. So yeah,
So
I'm
that's probably
expecting
going to
quite
be
a
the
bit about
trend in the upcoming months
that. I think we're
for
going to see
most
more of
security
that.
vendors. Yeah.
Until the end of the year, we're going to see more of this. And
Okay.
to be fair, there are more. So like SentinelOne has also announced last year already that they have their own language models they train, but they only use it on their own platform. They haven't open sourced it. So the news is mostly that it's open source. So ideally, more companies can use it, so you can work towards closing more gaps maybe in the in the
Okay. And
ecosystem.
if you look back at the conference of this week, how mature are all those solutions? Are they still trying to find a way to create security for AI? Do they really have something there that's enterprise grade, ready, good? What do you think?
That's one of the things. That's one of the things that's very hard to assess now, right? Because everything moves so quickly that whenever you have something that works very well today, tomorrow may be completely different, right? So it's very hard to give an answer to that. It's the same with another topic that I discussed with various people this week, Also with the CISO from Zscaler, for example, that's about quantum. That's also one of those things, right? Everybody's, I think, agrees that we need to prepare ourselves for the post-quantum crypto phase.
Yeah, but
but
nobody's doing it.
because, well, I think in the security industry, movements are underway, so stuff is happening. But there's, especially in the for customers and for in the market, there's a lot of uncertainty about what does it exactly mean, right? Because you read very often that the first proper quantum computer will not be available until, and then you hear 2035 or 2030 or 2040, whatever. And then and it's very tempting to say, look, I'm not going to, I don't have to do it yet. I can wait for another 5 years. I think that's the wrong thing to do. You should really start doing it already. Try to become at least PQC post quantum ready. I think that's very important, and not to make it into a bit too big a project, because I heard from one customer, a bank, and he is the CISO of a bank, and he said, look, I have 30 million endpoints that I have to make sure to protect against quantum attacks, or to get PQC ready. And he estimates, well, it's going to take me 10 years. That's not really, I mean, if you look at it that way, then you probably, the project is so big that you're not going to start. But what you should do is break it up into smaller pieces and start doing something at least, right?
I wrote an article about this last week based on the reports that the security industry finds that you need to prepare for the quantum phase, and most organizations recognize that, but nobody's taking really action. And the basic thing they need to do right now is go for post-quantum encryption protocols.
Yeah,
that's basically all that it is.
Yeah, and you can do that,
but nobody's doing it.
No, but it is possible to actually at least start and think about it, plan,
there are
and do all that stuff.
Yeah, okay. There are some things on the way, like the whole web security. You know, we have these certificates that protect websites. Usually, you bought them for a year or for 3 years, and they're now in the next couple of years shortening that time frame to a week or 2 weeks or something. But they're really limiting the time that a certificate is valid. So when a post-quantum or I should say it correctly, a pre-quantum encryption gets broken by quantum, they can easily switch that around in a fast way, because those certificates are really short nowadays. That's basically what we need to move towards. But if you build applications, you usually still use certificates that are much longer valid. Otherwise, people have to update the application every other week. So we do need something for those.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And but the big thing is to make it to do it in steps, not make it into too big a project. I think that is a common theme. Yeah, and lastly, I think what may also not be interesting to I've actually spoken to somebody about something that I've never covered before, and that's so there's something new on the horizon. It's called I spoke to somebody, so the founder of SquareX. They do browser detection and response. Because they see that a lot of the workloads are becoming increasingly browser based. The security of the browsers themselves is lacking, and they need and they feel that that we need browser based detection and response. And I've actually recorded a podcast on it, so people should tune into that in
Stay
about
tuned
a week.
for that.
It's actually quite interesting, because there used to be you used to have these enterprise browsers, that that people could only use when that people had to use when they did business things, but they were not really doing what they should have done. And endpoint detection and response also doesn't really do very well when it comes to browser protection. So. And this is also one of those examples. Actually, when I talked to the founder, I said, look, this also reminds me a little bit of API security. Is this viable as a standalone business? And he was like, well, we'll have to see in 2 years. You never know.
So they hope to be acquired very soon.
Well, that was what I said as well. But yeah, well, or not. I mean, if it actually has legs and you can build it into sustainable and you can go public and you can and another company, you have a competitor that also goes public, then it's. But I don't think it's something that's going to be standalone for the in the longer term. I think.
Okay.
But that's
I think that's
something
all
that
we
we
have
can.
time for today.
Yeah.
So it's time to wrap up. Any final words on RSA conference? You're going again next year, or was it too busy?
No, yeah, I don't like people very much. It can be quite challenging to walk around 45, 50,000 people. I always get a lot of nice input and information out of it. So I probably will be going.
So
again.
he's going He's going again next year. Stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching this Techzine Perspective. We'll be back next week with a perspective on ServiceNow's knowledge. See you then.